Thank you guys for coming. I know the description on this was pretty one line, two line, but it's good stuff. So we're going to be doing KSS PHP. Kind of give a quick introduction about myself first. I am the VP of Web Development at Scan. Scan is still a startup. We're based down in Provo, which is about an hour south, 45 minutes south of here. What we're trying to do with Scan is connect the physical and digital worlds together. Right now we mostly do that through QR codes. We're not married to QR codes. If QR codes got out of fashion, no big deal. That's not our business. Our business is connecting the physical and digital worlds. But like I said, right now we're doing that a lot through QR codes. We have a lot of different types of QR codes. This is my business card QR code. We have QR codes for connecting to people through social media. We have it for contacting people, emailing, phone calls, redirecting to websites, connecting to Wi-Fi networks. We have 2 new QR codes out in beta right now that we're working on and are pretty excited about. One is called Scan to Pay. Imagine you're flying home, you're looking through the Sky Mall magazine, you see a giant crossword puzzle you want to buy. Scan the QR code right there, buy it, have it delivered to your house. Red Cross is passing out pamphlets, you pick one up. When you're walking through a mall or something, it says, hey, there's a typhoon in the Philippines, scan this QR code to donate. And we go and collect all that money and route the money to the charity or whatnot. I'm going to use it at a garage sale. I have a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to take to BI. So I'm just going to put a whole bunch of QR codes on stuff, leave it outside, tell people if they want to buy it, they can scan the QR code. If they want to steal it, I was going to get rid of it anyway, so go ahead, take it. The second QR code type that we have in beta right now is called Scan to Market. It's kind of to incentivize customers to tweet or Instagram or Facebook a business in exchange for free chips or 5% discount. So the business can make those, the customer is prompted to do something, we confirm that they did it, and then it displays a coupon on their phone and they can show it to the business to get their discount or free milkshake or whatever. Me personally, I've been doing PHP for a long time, probably 13, 14 plus years, professionally for 10. Right now I'm working a lot in the Symfony 2 framework, love it a lot. I do all my CSS with Sass. It's made CSS fun again for me. If I'm doing something crazy in JavaScript, I do it in Ember. I know a lot of people are all Angular, but Ember's cooler. So try Ember. And I like a lot of board games. I do a lot of board games. I buy a lot of board games. I play a lot of board games. And I waste all my money on Kickstarter buying crazy things. So you scan my QR code, you can look at my board game collection, you can see the stuff I spend my money on Kickstarter. If you need a scanner, you can get a free one by going to free.scan.me. We have free ones for Android and for iOS. If you want to pay, we have Windows 8 as well. Any questions about scanning what I do? You don't really care. Okay. This presentation, this is my last slide. It's kind of going to be a live demo. The projectors are kind of bad and it's kind of hard to follow along, so I put it all up on GitHub. You can go there, check it out, clone it down, and look at the diffs. That way, if you're having a hard time seeing the screen or if you want to go home or take it to your company, you're welcome to use this. Just start with tag 0 or step 0, and then you can either walk through it, look at the diffs, or you can go to check out tab 1 or step 1, check out step 2, whatever, and you can go through it all. So there's 10 steps to go through. Hopefully that's helpful. To everyone have that wants it, because I just pushed escape. Anybody still writing that down? Okay. So let's talk about what a style guide is. Oh, come on. I don't want my name bar. Oh, did I close my tabs? No, I didn't. This is probably the first really good style guide that I found. This is on GitHub. This is GitHub style guide. If you go to github.com/styleguide/CSS, this will pull up. And it kind of goes through GitHub's coding standards when it comes to CSS, how they like to write CSS, and what you should be doing if you're writing CSS at GitHub. In addition to kind of their coding standards, they have this big, huge menu of kind of a pattern library for the different styles that they have. So here's their buttons. all the different modifiers they can put onto the buttons, what those buttons look like with those different modifiers, and then the HTML to create those buttons. More buttons, more different styles, whatever. Here's their merge button stuff. So you can see how that's all put together, all the different styles, how they're doing the CSS on that. So basically, what I'm calling a style guide is kind of a pattern library, when to use it, what it should be used for, what it looks like, the HTML to code it up, okay? I find these extremely useful. Some of the things that I like to use the style guides for is when you have new employees. They can come and check out the style guide and say, hey, here's all the different stuff I can do in CSS. Here's kind of the look and feel for the website. If I need to make something that looks like this, this is the HTML code I use. Here's the different modifiers I can do. Having just kind of that all documented and written down helps prevent people redoing the same things over and over and over again. When I worked at a previous company, KSL, their style sheets are atrocious. And there's like 6 different classes to mark up errors. And it's error or errors or UI, ul.errors, and they all look slightly different and no one knows which one to use. And so someone makes errors for reals, and you've got all these different styles. People don't know about other styles, so they put the same style in different style sheets. Now your style sheets are conflicting and combining together.
Just make it important.
Yeah, throw some more importance in there, see what happens. It's a mess. If you've got more than one person writing CSS, it can get ugly real quick. So having a style guide is kind of a place to say, hey, this is what we're doing, we've agreed on this, or I'm forcing you to do this, this is what we're doing. Okay? It's also nice, you kind of get these building blocks, like, and if you're designers or designing pages, you can say, hey, here's all this stuff we already have. We have this, well, you can't see, this is red. We have this red heading thing for errors. So if you need to do something with errors, throw this into your PSD, and this is how you can do errors. And we can have a common look and feel across the whole site. And your designers can look through this and say, hey, this is kind of what they've already have going. They've already got this style. If we want to make something quick and easy, we can just use these Lego building blocks. So I really liked that, and I spent some time putting the same thing together for Scan. It's similar to GitHub. I disagree with some of their coding styles, so I put my own coding styles up. If you wanted to take a look at this is scan.me/style guide. And I talk about using Sass. We use Bootstrap Sass. We're using Compass. I talk about using VEM syntax. Whatever. So these are my rules. If you're working with me as my front-end developer, this is what I'm going to ask you to follow. And again, we have different things. I have a list of all our colors that we use. You can hover over and see them on different whatnot. So here's the variables for those colors. This is a whole bunch of blues and grays, and I keep this up so my designer knows that he's adding like 50 different blues and grays, and we really only need blue and gray. We don't need 50 of them. So that's just his reminder. I can probably reduce some of these with using Sass, Darken, and Lighten, but I don't. Here's a whole bunch of Bootstrap stuff. You get the idea. You don't need me to look through all this, but oops. Another thing I like to use style guides for is just to test out experiments. I kind of use it as a kind of a unit test, like here's what I want it to do. I have a plain page. I can throw it up on here to kind of see if that style is working. If I then go and install Bootstrap 3.1 or whatever new Bootstrap version comes out and I'm using that, I can come back to this page and say, hey, yeah, my styles are still working. It's kind of manual code testing there, but here's a complex problem I was trying to figure out. I just wanted to animate this GIF with CSS only. So I have 3 different layers, and the laser comes down and shows your download progress. Here's my simple HTML for that. I wanted to see if all my modifiers were working correctly and rendering that GIF. So that was just kind of an experiment, not GIF, but different layers of backgrounds. Kind of my experiment to see if that worked. So style guides, I think, can be very helpful to get everyone on the same page, just to make sure your CSS styles are working, stop people from reinventing the wheel or doing something you already have, and helping your designers kind of maintain the consistent feel of your site. Others ideas of how to use a style guide. Anybody else have opinions on them or Thoughts? Okay. Style guides, though, can quickly get outdated and be a pain to maintain. Let me kind of give you a feel for that. Oops. Where am I? So here's what we're going to be working on. We're going to be transforming this into a living style guide. Here we are just on step 0, just to give you a quick rundown of the site, what we're working with, our file structure. Let me move that over. We have a quick index file. In our index, we're not doing anything fancy with PHP. We're just doing an include to bring the header in. The header just has some style sheets in it, brings in a menu. We have an awesome closing footer. Our menu is just an unordered list. We have a single alert CSS that we're working with. And then we have our index file kind of documenting that style up. So we have just some tags here with the name, the description, an example of what that looks like, and then our HTML code for that to render. Okay? So that gives us this. Let's say I come in, I add a new modifier. Come back to my style guide, it's already out of date. No one knows about that style. No one even knows I add it. It is in my style sheet. So now I have to go and maintain my style guide. So I'm going to come in here, I'm just going to copy and paste this to get my next one up. Put my modifier on that. I'm going to put a modifier on this as well. I have some other layout CSS stuff. I'm just going to use those. Let's see, I think I called that modifier style guide element. Sorry. And we're calling this air, or it's actually alert there. Okay? So there my style guide is now. Oh, you can see that great. This is red. You can see that great. Now my style guide is back up to date. Totally a manual process, really annoying. That's going to quickly get out of date. Again, new developer, new style. Let's do, this is, again, already out of date. Copy and paste again. It basically sucks, and quickly everyone's going to give up on maintaining the style guide. Okay? That's not what you want. If you're creating a style guide this way, you're going to give up. It's going to be out of date. It's going to be useless. You've wasted your time putting together a style guide. So someone smarter than me came out for a solution for this, and it was actually someone at GitHub. They created something called KSS. He named it after, where did I go? Thanks, back button. He named it after himself. That's fine. But it basically lets you document any version of CSS. It works with less, it works with Sass, it works with CSS, whatever. It's basically comment blocks inside of your CSS. You give it a description, you list your modifiers out, you give it a reference. Then you use KSS to parse those comments and have it output them on your page. KSS was originally written in Ruby. Someone wanted to use it for Node, so they ported it to Node. I wanted to use it for PHP. There wasn't one, so I ported it to PHP. Okay, so this PHP library is something I wrote. I didn't come up with it, I just ported it, okay? So I wanted to use it in PHP. I ported it over and made it into a Composer package. So let's go ahead and add that to our project. If you haven't worked with Composer before, You should have come to my talk yesterday. It'll change your life. If I put my slides up, if you really don't know, you can review my slides. I put all my presentation notes on there so you can brush up on it. But we need to use KSS. I'm going to do composer require on my command line. Probably can't see it.
It's fine.
Okay. So it's searching for a package. I'm searching for something to work with KSS. Internet hopefully works good. You can see we have our scan KSS PHP. That's the library you want to use. So I hit 0. Version, I'm on 0.6. You can use whatever version you want, but use 0.6. And then Composer will come out and install that. Hopefully. Unless they block SSH. All right, I've planned for this, so we're going to pretend like Composer worked. And where did I copy that? I thought I put it on my desktop. Maybe some sites. Okay, so pretend like Composer did all that. So Composer's installed KSS PHP and some Symfony dependencies that I'm using. I want to go ahead and start using KSS to make this easier. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my autoloader from Composer. I'm going to make a KSS parser. With your KSS parser, you specify the directory you want it to use. So I'm going to I'm going to go through the CSS directory, parse all those CSS files inside of that directory. I'm going to pull out, I need to pull out a comment block from there. So I'm going to call get section, and then I would specify my reference. We haven't defined our references yet. I probably should have done that first, but it's going to be reference 1.1. Okay? So in our alert.css, we need to define our KSS block using comments in CSS. If you're doing less or sash, you should use the // That's recommended, but CSS you have to do the /*. So you just give it a description. These are containers to present information to the user. That's the description for my style. You list your modifiers. And then you give it a style guide reference. And that's your block. That's all you have to do to document that. Now we can come back to our index file. We're grabbing that section with the KSS parser. We can replace some of these. I'm just going to use short echoes. So we can say section, get, we don't have that yet. Let's leave that there. Ignore that. Let's put our description in. So we can do our section get description. And then instead of manually doing all these modifiers, we can just loop over our different modifiers. So we can do section, get modifiers. Just do a simple loop there. This is really ugly PHP. I'm used to working in Twig or something, so this really bothers me. Hopefully it bothers you too. But I just wanted to keep this simple. So here we need to alert our modifier class. So that's going to get the name of the modifier. And here we need to get the class name. They're very similar. The class name doesn't have a dot in front of it, so of course it can work as a class. Let's see, does that all look right? There we go. What did I do? Line 4. Am I doing that wrong? Is it auto loader? One sec, I'm gonna cheat. I'm obviously having a brain fire. Scan KSS. This is auto loader. Should be right.
No, it's auto load.
Thank you. Undefined variable modifier. Let's we spell things right. More undefined stuff. Again, how should we spell things right? Alright, sorry about that, technical. So now those are all coming straight from KSS. You can come back to your style sheet. You could add a new one. Again, you have to list your modifiers so it knows where they are. And then you write your CSS. And boom, style guide is automatically updated. So now you just change your CSS, and your style guide updates to always be matching what you've shown there in your CSS. The modifiers in KSS can also take descriptions. So we can say, hey, show this or use this when the user does something dumb. Use this when the user does something right. Whatever. So that way you can put additional information in your style guide about when you should use each modifier. We'll just quickly put this up here. This is just going to be another loop through our modifiers. Nothing too different here. So let's just copy that. And we'll make this a UL. If I was doing this right, I'd put an if statement there to make sure my UL didn't come out if I didn't have any modifiers, but we'll just keep it ugly because everyone loves watching PHP type. So we can do a modifier, get name, right there, and we can say if there's a description. Again, normally you'd probably check to see if there's a description to make this look nice, but you can just pull that description out. And there's probably some styles I'm missing, but it's fine, it looks fine. So now you've got your modifiers up there, their description up there. Again, you could easily come in, add something new. You guys get the idea. Automatically added up there with the description added down here. Your style guide staying up to date. Okay? Obviously, there's more we can do to make this better. Let's say, for example, you've added a new tag inside of your alerts. Again, that's not showing up anymore. You've made this new alert title. You'd have to come back in, and you're going to have to manually update each one of these. So now you've got maintenance on the markup used inside of your style guide classes. So you'd have to update it there. You'd have to update it inside each of your external place modifiers. And then this is the annoying part. You're going to have to modify it here as well. So less than H1 greater than title, less than H1 greater than. So, oh, that's great. And then you also have to put your classes on. So do I not put my classes on? It's alert underscore underscore title. okay? So now you've got to maintain that HTML. That can get really annoying really quick. I didn't like that. I suggested that we could modify the KSS blocks to have the HTML embedded within that. The KSL repo guide that's in charge of the Ruby version didn't like that, so I said, I'm in charge of the KSS PHP one. I want it, I'm going to put it in. So KSS PHP and KSS Node allow you to put markup inside of your KSS blocks. KSS Ruby does not. Okay, so this is where we're getting a little bit different. I wanted to make it easier to maintain, have it all in one place. So I've modified a little bit from the KSS Ruby spec. To put your markup in, you just do a markup colon, and then you can just bring that right in. So I'm just going to cut that, put it in right here, fix it up a little bit, and you're good to go. You do have to mark where your modifier class goes. So we've hard-coded alert in there, but it needs to know where to put alert error, alert success, whatever. So you just put a placeholder in there. KSS PHP is looking for the placeholder modifier class. Now you can come back into your index PHP, and instead of hard-coding all of this HTML, let's see if I can find all the spots for it. We've got one here. We can replace that. So this is the modifier. So we're going to say modifier, get example, HTML. And then we had our non-modifier here one. So for your plain one, you have to pull it from the section. And we call it get markup example, I think.
Normal.
Normal, thank you. Saving me from myself. Get markup normal. So that's just going to get that globally for the entire section. Then we can put it in here as well, but this needs to be HTML entities, just to escape it all.
You're also passing in a class.
Yeah. So markup normal. You can see down in our example, the div class alert. There's kind of this awkward space where the modifier class was. That's stripped out, so it can render this one correctly. But in your example HTML code, it might be helpful to show where that placeholder goes. So you can name that placeholder, and instead of replacing it with an empty string, it's going to replace it with your placeholder, so your developers can see where that modifier class goes. So now that HTML is coming straight from your CSS. You modify it in one place. And all your examples in your HTML code is updated as well. To me, that makes it easier to maintain, because when I'm inside of the CSS, I can do all my style guide documentation in one place. I then don't have to go back to the style guide itself and fix it up there. It's just, I'm doing everything in one place. I'm not going to forget to do it. It's not going to get out of date. So I really like that addition that I added to KSS. If I didn't like it, I probably wouldn't have done it. Let's say that we have different variations of that alert title. Maybe we have alert title small. Maybe we don't want such a big font size. We'll do 18. Again, that's not going to show up here anymore. We have to document. We can't just have two modifier classes in here. You can't do that either. It's just going to confuse KSS PHP. For each kind of group of modifier classes, you need its own block. So we're going to make a new block. Style Guide 1.2. This is our alert title small. And this is smaller title. Our markup's pretty much the same, except we move the modifier class down to where this modifier should be placed, and we can just update the description. Nothing there, because I didn't update my index.php. I would have to reproduce all of this code again for that section. Instead, when you check out KSS PHP, inside of the library itself, there's an example kind of project. one of those files in the example project is kind of this style guide block. You can use it as a base. You don't have to use it at all. You can customize it, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and grab this whole modifier block and just bring it into my project and use that as an include so I don't have to duplicate all that file. So you could send-link it in or do something more fancy. I'm just copying and pasting. I've got that as an include. Now instead of having all this code in here, let's get rid of all this. Well, let's get rid of these tags. It's going to bother me so I'm going to indent. So now I can get my section 1.1 and then include that block. Again, you probably have some better templating language. You probably don't have ugly, just raw PHP, but if you do, it still works. Okay? So I'm grabbing the first section, displaying it in the block, grabbing the second section, displaying it in the block. And I got rid of, oh, I put it in that space. Go after the header. So now I've got these ones, and now I've got the header title showing up as well. I can continue to add more sections and continue to include those blocks as many times as I need. You can see with this block I've added a few more information. There's the reference, and there's the file name that this class is found on. Let's just show that real quick. So you can see in the style guide reference, I have these marked up as well. You can do section get reference. You can do section get file name to show that information in here. There's also titles that you can show next to your reference. Again, this is not something that's in the KSS Ruby. This is something I added because I wanted to be able to title these so people could easily see what they said. So I've added just a hash for the markdown header, and you can specify a title for each of these. And now your title's showing up there as well, pulling that straight from the CSS. Okay, not a huge thing there, but just to make me happy, I've added that to KSS PHP. Any questions so far?
Couldn't you just modify like the style guide to say alert.1 or something?
Yeah, you could. KSS currently when I ported this, only supported number style guide references, so it had to be 1.1 or number.number.number or whatever. KSS Ruby has since been updated to support strings there, and I need to go back and update KSS PHP to support strings there as well. So once that was ported into KSS PHP, you could do buttons dot or alerts dot title or alert or whatever. But right now, only KSS Ruby has that. KSS Node doesn't, and KSS PHP does not. So that's something or it's on GitHub. Someone else can do it for me if you guys want, and submit a pull request. But yes, that is something I would like to get in there. Until then, you can do your markdown alerts titles. Okay. Other questions? Okay. KSS PHP also works with pseudo-classes. So I'm just going to jump ahead here real quick so you don't have to watch me type a whole bunch of code. Let's see, I think that's step 8. And we'll force that. Okay, so all we've done is I've created a buttons CSS file. I've marked it up, default buttons, gave it a description, gave it some markdown, gave it a style guide reference. Here's my basic button, and then I have hover, focus, active, and disabled. Okay? Here it is in the index file, nothing too fancy. If I list my modifiers, we have hover, focus, active, disabled, and take a look at the style guide. Those modifiers are outputted, but you can see they all look the same, and they shouldn't. So what's happening here is pseudo-classes aren't real class names. You can't just say class equals hover and have it show the hover pseudo-class. So here we have to use a little bit of JavaScript to get this to work. We're going to have JavaScript parse through our CSS files, find those pseudo-classes, and convert those pseudo-classes to actual real classes that we can then apply in our style guide. So KSS provides that JavaScript for you. Again, I'm going to go into the vendor directory, come down to the example file, and steal the kss.js, or kss.js. Again, you could do something fancy, get this into your project. I'm just copying and pasting. And then I'm going to put that on my footer. Refresh, and there we go. So here's our hover style, our focus style, our active, and our disabled style. If we inspect that inside of Chrome, you can see, you can't see it all. You can see the button now has a class called pseudo-class active, and if you look inside of our heads, the JavaScript has created this button pseudo-class active style and put that up in your head. So that's what that JavaScript is doing, so it can display these different styles for you. Okay? There's a lot of pseudo-classes supported, target, active. You can look through that JavaScript file and add the ones that aren't there if they aren't and do a pull request, but most of them should be there. How are we doing on time? Okay, the last, let me show you one last thing, and I think we're good. We'll take questions after that. When you have a whole bunch of different sections, you probably don't want it all on one page. So we can modify our menu. And again, I'm going to make a really terrible menu system. Probably don't want to do this. But if you do, it's not a big deal. We're going to have KSS PHP tell us about all the different sections that we have. So we're going to say for each, we're going to get our KSS, and we're going to ask it for all the top level sections. And just use that to create our links. What am I going to do here? So now we have, use this link real quick. So we can get the name of that section for the text, and then I'm just going to link it to index.php with a get string variable, section, get reference. Okay, now we have to tell, if you look at that right now, nothing's changed. We need to define those top level sections for KSS. Inside of our index files, or inside of our style sheets, I'm just going to define a new comment block, give it a name, alerts, whatever, and then I'm just going to give it a style guide reference of 1. So that's going to become a top level child. Get title. And now that shows up in our menu. If you can see our URL, it does have the reference of 1. Come down to our buttons, kind of do the same thing. Buttons, style guide 2. Our buttons show up in the menu. Now we need to modify our index. Let's call this, let's say if ref, let's say if it's set, we'll use it. This is asking for problems, don't do this in production. Then we can say something like if ref is greater than 0, then we want to get all the different child sections within that reference. So we can say for each KSS get section children for that reference. Then we can just include, oops, as section. Then we can just include that block. Else we can say something. There's all the section 1s. There's all the section 2s. If we then added a new CSS later for containers or something, all we'd have to do is mark that up with a title. So containers, style guide 3. Quickly write a KSS block here. Give the title, basic container. This is a demo. We have our markup. We'll just do div class container modifier class. Blah, div. We could have our modifier. And we can have, let's see, container, we'll just do a border real quick. And our container alt. Let's do a border style real quick. Make sure that's linked in. Save that, we've added a new style sheet. We immediately get that in our style guide. And I didn't give this a style guide reference, style guide 3.1. And it's immediately in our style guide pattern library. Okay? So that's what KSS PHP can do for you. Make it really easy. Document your style guides. You do everything in the CSS files. Once you've got the basic KSS pattern guide PHP kind of written, you never have to touch it again. After that, you're always going to be working inside of your CSS to document your styles, give it some example market, describe your modifiers, give the style guide reference, and then immediately your style guide is updated. You don't have to worry about maintaining it ever again. You're done, and it's very nice, very helpful to use. Like I said, this code is kind of ugly because it's all this inline PHP and includes and whatnot. I use Symfony at work, so I've created a Symfony bundle for this, kind of to put it inside of Twig templates to make it easy to override different block portions using Twig, making KSS as a service inside of Symfony. If you use Symfony 2 and you want to use KSS to document your style guides, you can check out this KSS bundle and include that into your Symfony project to make it a lot easier. There's still the example controller to show you how it can work inside of Symfony. There's some demo routes for you to look at. And then there is the view files. It's not really anything too fancy. You could get by without it. But if you just wanted a way to get started, here's the Twig block. To me, that's a lot easier to read. And you can overwrite certain of these sections of the blocks to make it easier to work with. Again, for people using Symfony, if you're not using Symfony, I'm sure you guys are smart enough to do something else. Okay? Any questions?
We had issues, or I guess my question is, do you have a hard time getting other developers to help maintain, like, do the proper doc blocks and things like that?
There is. It can be a little bit difficult at the start getting people to start using it. Depending on how you merge in your code requests, there's solutions to that. I make everyone submit a pull request, we review them. If you don't have it, I don't merge it. And they quickly learn that they have to do it to get things merged. That's one way to do it. But yes, there is some training involved to get people to do it. And if you're just strict about it, it's going to happen. If you're not strict about it, people aren't going to do it, and it's going to fall by the wayside. So people hate submitting pull requests to me, I'm sure. I'm a little bit strict about it, but it's so helpful to have this all there, and the benefits outweigh people hating me, in my opinion.
So you said this also working for like SAS and those type of things?
Yes.
Is there anything special you have to do?
No, so when you're doing it with SAS, instead of pointing it to your CSS directory, you're going to point it to To your SAS files. And it'll read all the comments in the SAS just fine. I can show you some of mine if you're curious. Let's just switch projects real quick.
And then you include the generated CSS in the
Yes.
style guide.
But you have KSS parse the,
The SAS files?
yes. Let me just. So here am I doing it inside of SAS, statuses, alerts, same thing. I just have some fancy SAS in here. But other than that, it's completely the same.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
Do your designers respect it pretty well? as well?
I only have one designer, and he likes me a lot, and so he does what I ask him to do. That's my experience. I'm sure there can be some
You don't
fun
have to just-
political discussions there.
I'm the designer.
So there you go. Hopefully you'll do it then. Other questions? Okay, thank you for your time. Again, that's all on GitHub. If you want to work through that yourself or you want to show it to your company, hopefully that demo helps. Just there's a whole bunch of tags. You can either look at this or just check out the tags or do a completely better presentation than I did. Thank you.